In the shifting landscape of global energy markets, few developments capture as much attention as the decisions of major importers and producers regarding the sources of their crude oil. When India, one of the fastest-growing economies in the world and a nation that relies heavily on imported oil to fuel its ambitions, rejects U.S. crude shipments in favor of Nigerian oil, the implications reverberate across continents. This move, set against the backdrop of sanctions on Russia that have reshaped supply chains and altered traditional flows, is more than a simple case of one buyer choosing one supplier over another. It is a reflection of a complex interplay of geopolitics, economics, energy security, and the shifting balance of global influence. To understand the depth of this decision, one must first recognize the role India plays in the global oil market. With a population surpassing 1.4 billion and an economy that continues to grow at a pace outstripping many others, India is the third largest oil consumer in the world, trailing only the United States and China. Its demand for crude oil is insatiable, driven by transportation needs, industrial growth, and the aspirations of a young and urbanizing population. Yet India produces only a fraction of the oil it consumes, leaving it highly dependent on foreign suppliers. This dependency, however, gives India both vulnerabilities and opportunities. Its choices as an importer can significantly affect global flows, while at the same time exposing the country to the shifting tides of global politics and price volatility. Traditionally, India has relied on a diverse set of suppliers, ranging from the Middle East to Africa to the Americas. The Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia and Iraq, has been a dominant source of oil for India, given geographic proximity, established infrastructure, and long-term relationships. But over the years, India has also sought to diversify its suppliers, purchasing from countries as varied as Venezuela, Nigeria, and the United States. The entry of U.S. crude into the global market following the shale revolution offered India another option, especially as Washington sought to promote its exports and deepen energy ties with key partners. American crude, often lighter and sweeter compared to some Middle Eastern grades, was seen as competitive in certain refining configurations and also symbolized closer U.S.-India relations. Yet, despite these factors, India's rejection of U.S. crude in favor of Nigerian oil demonstrates the fluidity of market preferences and the role of evolving global dynamics. Nigeria, as Africa's largest oil producer, has long been a key supplier to multiple regions, including Europe and Asia. Its Bonny Light and other grades are highly prized for their quality, offering refiners the ability to produce high-value products like gasoline and diesel with relative efficiency. For Indian refiners, which must balance complex blends of crude to maximize output, Nigerian oil offers both flexibility and profitability. In addition, Nigerian grades are often available at competitive prices, particularly when sellers are seeking to expand their footprint in Asia at a time when traditional European buyers have been diversifying their own purchases. The timing of India's pivot toward Nigerian oil cannot be divorced from the larger context of sanctions on Russia. When Western nations, led by the United States and the European Union, imposed sweeping sanctions on Moscow in response to its geopolitical actions, the global oil market was immediately thrown into disarray. Russia, one of the largest oil exporters in the world, found many of its traditional markets closed or restricted, forcing it to redirect flows to more receptive buyers. India emerged as one of the most significant beneficiaries of this shift, stepping in to purchase Russian crude at discounted rates. For New Delhi, this was both an economic opportunity and a political balancing act. The discounted Russian crude allowed Indian refiners to lower input costs, enhancing competitiveness and providing relief in an environment of volatile global prices. But it also placed India in a delicate position vis-à-vis Western partners who sought to isolate Moscow economically. As Indian refiners adjusted to the influx of Russian barrels, logistical and operational challenges emerged. Transporting oil from Russian ports to India required longer voyages and creative financing arrangements to navigate sanctions-related hurdles. While India has managed this deftly, the presence of Russian oil in its supply basket has inevitably altered its calculations about other suppliers. U.S. crude, which once had a growing share of the Indian market, suddenly appeared less attractive. Freight costs from the U.S. Gulf Coast to India are significant, making American barrels less competitive compared to nearer suppliers. Moreover, with India already securing heavy volumes of Russian crude at discounted prices, the incentive to pay a premium for U.S. oil diminished. Nigerian oil, in contrast, presented itself as a geographically closer, high-quality alternative that complemented the Russian inflows. Another factor influencing India's shift is the broader geopolitical environment. New Delhi has long pursued a policy of strategic autonomy, avoiding over-reliance on any one partner while preserving flexibility in its foreign relations. In recent years, as tensions between Washington and Moscow intensified, India found itself in the unique position of maintaining strong relations with both powers while also deepening ties with other regions. Turning toward Nigeria and Africa more broadly for energy supplies fits neatly into this approach. It diversifies India's import portfolio, lessening dependence on any single region while also strengthening its partnerships with African nations. This is not only a matter of energy security but also a geopolitical statement. India is signaling that its choices will be guided by pragmatism and its own national interests, not by pressure from external powers. Nigeria, for its part, stands to gain significantly from India's growing interest. As Europe reduces its dependence on African oil in favor of alternative sources, Nigerian producers are eager to expand in Asia. India provides a vast and reliable market, and Nigerian oil companies and the state are more than willing to court this opportunity. For Abuja, the strengthening of energy ties with India also carries political dividends, cementing its role as a major player in global energy while fostering closer economic ties with one of the world's largest emerging markets. This dynamic is mutually beneficial, with India securing high-quality oil and Nigeria ensuring sustained demand for its exports. From an economic perspective, India's rejection of U.S. crude underscores the relentless logic of price, quality, and logistics in the oil market. Refiners operate in a competitive environment where margins are often slim and decisions are driven by the pursuit of efficiency and profitability. While political considerations can and do play a role, the fundamental drivers remain commercial. Nigerian oil's price competitiveness, coupled with its refining advantages and logistical benefits, made it the rational choice for Indian buyers at this juncture. American crude, despite its availability and the political support behind it, simply could not compete under the prevailing conditions. The broader implications of this shift, however, extend beyond immediate economics. It reflects the ways in which the global oil market is being reshaped by sanctions on Russia and the responses of various actors. Traditional supply routes and relationships are being disrupted, with new alignments emerging in their place. India's pivot toward Nigerian oil is emblematic of a world where old certainties are breaking down and flexibility is paramount. The West's attempt to isolate Russia has inadvertently catalyzed a reconfiguration of trade flows that is empowering countries like India to assert greater independence in their energy choices. This reconfiguration also provides opportunities for other producers, such as Nigeria, to expand their influence and secure new markets. The United States, naturally, is not indifferent to these developments. Washington has invested considerable effort in promoting its crude exports, seeing them as both an economic and strategic tool. Energy exports strengthen the U.S. economy, reduce trade deficits, and provide leverage in international relations. Losing ground in a key market like India is not just a commercial setback, but also a strategic one. It raises questions about how sustainable U.S. crude exports are in an environment where freight costs, quality preferences, and geopolitical shifts weigh heavily. It also challenges Washington to reconsider how best to maintain energy ties with partners like India at a time when other suppliers are stepping in. For India, the rejection of U.S. crude in favor of Nigerian oil is a continuation of its long-standing approach to energy security. Energy has always been a central concern for Indian policymakers, who understand that reliable and affordable supplies are essential for sustaining economic growth and social stability. By maintaining a diverse basket of suppliers, India reduces the risks associated with disruptions in any one region. The inclusion of Nigerian oil in greater volumes strengthens this diversity and ensures that Indian refiners have access to the clear types of crude they need to optimize their operations. It also reflects India's pragmatic approach to navigating a turbulent global energy landscape where alliances shift, prices fluctuate, and political pressures abound. The consequences of this shift are being watched closely by other nations. China, another major importer of oil, has also deepened its ties with African suppliers in recent years, complementing its purchases from the Middle East and Russia. India's actions thus mirror a broader trend among Asian powers of seeking diverse and flexible energy arrangements that reduce vulnerability to external shocks. For African producers like Nigeria, this is welcome news as it expands their customer base and reduces dependence on traditional markets. For Western producers and policymakers, however, it underscores the limits of their influence in an increasingly multipolar energy world. The story of India's rejection of U.S. crude in favor of Nigerian oil also highlights the interconnectedness of global markets. Decisions made in Washington or Brussels, such as the imposition of sanctions on Russia, ripple across the world in unexpected ways. While the aim may have been to weaken Moscow, the effect has been to strengthen alternative relationships and create new patterns of trade. India's choices are a direct response to these shifts, demonstrating how sanctions and geopolitical maneuvering can produce outcomes far beyond what their architects intended. In this case, the outcome is a stronger India-Nigeria energy partnership and a diminished role for U.S. crude in the Indian market. At the same time, this development raises questions about the future of the global oil market in an era of energy transition. As the world gradually moves toward renewable energy and decarbonization, the role of oil will inevitably change. Yet, in the near to medium term, demand for oil remains robust, particularly in fast-growing economies like India. How countries source this oil and from whom will continue to shape geopolitical relationships. India's pivot toward Nigeria is thus not just a short-term tactical move, but part of a longer-term strategy to secure diverse, reliable supplies while positioning itself in a changing world. For Nigeria, it is an opportunity to cement its role in Asia and build durable economic ties. For the United States, it is a reminder of the competitive pressures it faces in global energy markets and the need to adapt its strategies accordingly. Ultimately, the rejection of U.S. crude in favor of Nigerian oil is a microcosm of the broader changes sweeping the global energy system. It illustrates how sanctions, geopolitics, economics, and market logic intersect to produce outcomes that reshape the global map of energy flows. For India, it is a pragmatic decision rooted in national interest. For Nigeria, it is a welcome expansion of its market. For the United States, it is a challenge to its ambitions as an energy exporter, and for the world, it is yet another sign that the era of straightforward, predictable energy relationships is over, replaced by a more complex and dynamic order. Where flexibility and pragmatism reign, the global oil market long accustomed to certain patterns, is being remade before our eyes. The sanctions on Russia are a catalyst, but the consequences extend far beyond Moscow. India's choices, Nigeria's opportunities, and America's challenges are all part of this evolving picture. As energy remains the lifeblood of modern economies, the importance of these shifts cannot be overstated. They affect not only trade balances and corporate profits, but also the geopolitical alignments that shape the world. In the years ahead, decisions like India's will continue to chart the course of global energy, reminding us that in a world of change, adaptability is the ultimate currency.